Do you like isometric Diablo-esque games and also big beefy men in tight lycra? Well, do I have a game for you. Marvel Ultimate Alliance is a game from many of your childhoods. However, I'm coming at this game with a unique perspective. I never played this game growing up, so I am immune to the rose-tinted glasses or blinding lights of nostalgia. I can objectively look at this game without influence to determine if Marvel Ultimate Alliance still holds up to today, or if it's something that should have been left back in the early 2000s. So after my first time playing, I can say that this game does a lot of things right, but it also does many things wrong. So let's get into it. Ultimate Alliance is such a special celebration of the rich and plentiful Marvel mythos. Throughout your play, you'll quickly notice just how much love and attention has been put into giving you, the player, one of the most all-encapsulating, inclusive Marvel stories to have ever been told. You'll have access to the many of the 24 playable characters from the very start of the game, also with an ability to swap out your team almost immediately. This instantly gives players a choice in who they want on their team of 4, as well as heavily influences how you navigate these levels, as each character plays exactly how you'd expect. Tank characters can be slow, but are incredibly mighty. There are also characters that are more agile, some that work best from a distance. However, all attributes can come together for you to make a formidable combination to take down your foes. Now, if all that wasn't enough variety, you also have the ability to upgrade the many moves and stats of each character, as well as equip items that buff stats and resistances, and new skins to unlock. Oh, fuck, dude. Upgrade your characters' outfits? Yo, dude! I got classic Wolvie! Oh, shit! All this points to players having a much higher level of control and influence over their experience in the game, which was fantastic. Continuing with the theme of variety, you will also travel to many locations seen throughout Marvel lore, such as Stark Towers, Asgard, Mephisto's realm, Castle Doom and Latveria, the Skrull planet, Atlantis, the list just goes on. And these quickly changing locations is where you also find the mix of over 140 different characters that appear in this game as well. So that's a lot of characters, and surely a significant amount of shit must be hitting the fan for there to be a need for this ensemble, right? Well, let's get into the story and find out what's going on. So a quick summary is that Doom wants to take over the world. To do so, he assembles the Masters of Evil. The members launch an attack on S.H.I.E.L.D., and in response, a distress signal is sent out to all heroes. After saving the helicarrier and fighting a few villains, Nick Fury is granted permission to put together a task force to help take down the Masters of Evil. From here, you are sent on escapades around the world and locations to stop the Masters of Evil and Doom, as well as coming across many notable characters in your travels, much to the player's delight. Furthermore, cutscenes are played out in these beautifully animated segments to add to the exceptional world building on display. Characters sport their comic book looks, but they're modernized slightly just to be taken seriously enough with the events taking place. No one really feels out of place, and character designs for the most part were fantastic. Now moving into the combat, and as you could probably see already, it's fairly simple. You'll have a basic and heavy attack, and if you hold down the trigger button, you'll also have up to 4 additional moves depending on how far you've played through the game. These attacks are much stronger, and as such will cost you energy to use, so you can't just spam them. On top of that, you'll eventually unlock these massive finisher moves that are even stronger again, and of course require more energy to use. Depending on the team that you use, you may also get a synergy buff as well. I won't go into all of them, but as you can see on the screen now, combining certain characters on your team may make you privy to overall buffs to your team, which is just yet another thing that you need to consider. The game also does a fantastic job in changing its dialogue depending on who you're playing as and who you actually start talking to. Some characters clearly get along more with others, and it was always just so fun swapping to a new character and speaking to someone you know they would really like or really dislike, just to see the difference in that dialogue. The game, to my surprise, actually gives your choices meaning too. Throughout your play, you'll have optional missions as well as some forks in the road that impact the timeline that you're creating. At the conclusion of the game, you will be told that the consequences of your actions or omissions to act, and it details how you've impacted this timeline, which was so cool.
It was most unfortunate that you were unable to rescue Jean Grey in Mephisto's realm. For she does not die in the Infinity Vortex. Instead, she returns to Earth in the form of the Dark Phoenix to take vengeance upon those who did not save her.
So it sounds like I'm looking pretty favorably on this game, right? Well, for the most part, the game is quite good, but there is a large chunk of gameplay, I'd say right in the middle, that really detracted from my overall experience and probably makes this game suffer a lot in hindsight. One of the main pain points is that the game gets in its own way fairly chronically. It has this weird fixation with excessive padding and busy work. There was a part where I had to save Jean Grey, but in order to do that, I have to play Pitfall? What? So I play this stupid arcade game and do some light platforming. The only issue here is that you get stuck on invisible shit all the time, characters do not jump when you tell them to, sometimes they do jump, however it's only a fraction of a jump, and all of this leads to the whole area feeling unpredictable. Am I going to be swung back on the vine this time, or will I be propelled forward? Who fucking knows? But it's something that you need to get through if you want to progress through the game. You can't exit this area and you can't teleport out either. So you either beat this area or accept your new life in Pitfall Purgatory. And then in order to progress further in this area, you have to then get 2 golden tickets. So that forces you to go around this area and play more menial mini games just to get them. You do get bladed from pulling him out of a skill tester, which was pretty funny, but overall this whole segment could have been cut way back or at least made optional. You eventually move into Mephisto's realm, which sees you doing 5 menial tasks to light up 5 corresponding candles to unlock a portal, and these 5 things are done so quickly that they add no value. It's so obvious that this was just padding and it could have easily been taken out and the game wouldn't have suffered at all, rather it would have benefited. The last example I want to share is a doozy. It's a long one, so bear with me. I had to save Tyr and Heimdall, so I had to do all these things to cool down the lava and save him. Cool, did that, went on to save Heimdall. And then I had to move these 3 boxes onto switches before being able to press another switch. Of course, they're placed the furthest away from their corresponding switch too, just to make the gameplay even longer. Now, once you do that, you then unlock another thing with 2 switches. But wait, those 2 switches won't work unless you go away and do another odd job to unlock that second switch, which has been blocked off. How did I unlock that second switch? I had to go into another room, see a rune that breaks into 3 pieces, which I obviously need to put back together. So then I go into those 3 adjacent rooms, beat up each bad guy in each room, collect that rune, put it all together just in the room outside, and only then can that second previous switch become usable. None of this added to the overall enjoyment of the game. It didn't contribute a feeling of satisfaction or gratification. It was one in a long line of hurdles that was stopping me from getting to my actual goal. The game is plagued with this kind of shit. And get this, to free Heimdall, I just had to go into the only 4 rooms in this area to melt the ice. These aren't even puzzles, it's just more like go wherever you can to solve the problem. Now, believe it or not, all of what I just described was actually side stuff that you need to do to complete an even larger mission. I had to save Tyr and Heimdall because I was actually needing to save Balder, and the only way to save him was to do all this other shit. But once they were free, I was surely able to release Balder immediately, right? No, of course not. I then had to fight the Enchantress and Executioner before Balder was free, adding yet another hurdle. So the side missions have side missions, the busy work has its own busy work, the layers of bullshit run so deep here, boys. There is just so many of this, do 3 to 4 things in order to unlock another thing which contributes to another thing before you can do the real thing that you want to do. Most of it is meaningless and lends the game to having severe pacing issues, especially in the middle, as most of what you do feels entirely tangential to the main story at hand. When the game does get back on track by the end, it picks up in a big way and only made me wish it maintained this level of storytelling throughout. Now, not only that, there is a severe lack of enemy types here. The game does its best to try to give you enemies that belong or look like they belong to the areas in which you're playing as, which was a really nice touch. However, aside from a couple of enemy archetypes such as Heavy or one with a shield, they're mostly just taken out in the exact same way no matter where you are. This means that the difference in appearance was really just reduced to only that, a skin change. very little consideration was given to them. They're mostly all taken out in the exact same way and hits, and any resistances are quickly navigated around. It got so repetitive to the point where I just played as Spider-Man and swung over most of the enemies. I just could not be bothered killing a few hundred more goon type enemies on the way to my next location. Now I am aware that this is the gameplay loop for ARPGs, but little was done to maintain variety throughout my 8 to 10 hour play, and as such, it failed to hold my attention in this regard. Unfortunately, the boss fights are equally as lackluster. Most mini bosses will have larger health bars, and you take them out as you would with normal enemy types. And you'll occasionally fight a larger boss that requires you to wait for a specific moment, trigger a quick time event, and have that take off around 1/4 of the enemy's health bar at a time. You do that 3 more times, and then that boss fight is done. Now I get doing this for some bosses, but they even reduced my boy Galactus to this entirely uninteresting and uninspired format. You have to go around and hit 3 switches, and when that's done, the Silver Surfer will fly around him, attack, and then that's it. No second phase or changes between QuickTime events, just the same actions, the same attacks, same animations, and same location. It felt lazy. So overall, my time with Marvel Ultimate Alliance was mixed. On one hand, I truly appreciate the effort of the world building, the emphasis on the large character roster, and the even larger list of NPCs that you come across to build out this robust world. I love that characters truly felt like themselves. I love the synergy between those characters. However, it's this attention to detail that shines a revealing light on other areas in the game where the same level of care is lacking. The severe pacing issues, repetitive and simple gameplay loops, dull boss fights, and the worst offender, blatant busy work to unapologetically pad out the gameplay severely detracted from my experience. I'd say if you loved the game as a kid, keep those memories and don't replay the game. Hold on to your happiness and your blissful ignorance. I fear that a first-time play for those who haven't played will make you fail to understand the hype around this game, and those replaying it may be let down now that you're playing with a few more brain cells.